Welcome back to my channel. This is probably going to be one of my most watched videos, and this is the video that I've been promising, where I'm going to explain the process of adopting through foster care. So this is going to be 2 videos because otherwise it would just be way too long and I get tired of talking and you guys get tired of listening. So I like to keep the video short. So this is going to be part 1, and then there will be a part 2 and maybe even a part 3. So first of all, let me say that I did this process in Washington, D.C. So everything that I say is not going to apply to you depending on where you live. However, most jurisdictions do it very similarly. So it might not be exactly the same, but would be very similar. So you can still gain a lot of information and insight from my Washington, D.C. experience. So the first thing that you do is apply. I'm sorry, you apply, but you apply through attending an orientation. So you attend an orientation. The purpose of this orientation is for you to get all the information that you need and then to make a decision on whether or not you would like to apply, and then to go ahead and apply at the end of the orientation. So the information that you're going to get at the orientation is a general overview of what requirements will be needed for your home and yourself. So that is things like you don't have a criminal record. Now, I do believe that in most places you can have something on your record, but they're looking for specific things like crimes against children or very serious crimes and things like that. So I don't believe having something on your record completely disqualifies you. I know that if you have something, there may be like a process where you like explain it or whatever the case may be. But they're looking to check your background. They're letting you know that that is a requirement. They're not checking it at the orientation. This is just information. So they tell you that your background should be clean. They tell you that you have to have a backup caregiver in most places. And then you have to give them that person's information, and their background has to be checked. They tell you things like if you have other people living in your household. Now, the backup caregiver does not live in your household. This is a person separate from your family unit in your house. But if you have other adults over 18 who live in your household, they have to be background checked too. And everybody in the house has to have a physical. That includes you, your children, your spouse, everybody in the house. So they're giving you all that type of information at the orientation. They're telling you the general process for your home inspection. And I'll get into that either in this video or the next one. So they'll tell you generally what would be expected during that process. So all the basic stuff they're telling you. Then you decide if you want to sign up or not. So you say, yes, I'm all in. I want to sign up to be a foster parent or foster to adopt parent. So then you apply. So when you apply, they sign you up for a class. Basically, it's a class, and some places the class is 8 weeks, some places it's 6 weeks, And, it could be longer, could be shorter, depending on where you live. But there's always a general class. So in this class, you meet for maybe 2 hours a week. Sometimes it could be twice a week for 2 hours, so 4 hours a week. It all depends on where you live and how they do it, but it's going to be similar to what I'm saying. So you go to class. In the class, you're learning about their policies for discipline. Like, you cannot spank children who are wards of the state. You cannot spank a foster child. That is a criminal offense. You can go to jail. So they tell you some of the scenarios that you might encounter. They tell you how to navigate the process of working with the child and the birth parents, because in most cases, there is still contact with the birth parent. For me, that was not the case. But in most cases, there's still some contact with the birth parent. They have visitation rights, and you have to facilitate those visits. So they explain all of that. They talk about how to manage the child's social, emotional, educational, physical needs, like going to the doctor and taking the kid to therapy. Whatever the situation is, they're going to tell you, like, generally how to manage those things. So there's a ton of things covered in this class. Like I said, it's 6 or 8 weeks, a lot of sessions, and it's preparing you for the process. Also, while you're in this class and going through this process, they're going to also be doing your background checks, and you're going to be filling out paperwork. So the paperwork is, oh my God, it's a lot of paperwork. In Washington, D.C., I don't know about every place, but in Washington, D.C., I had to tell them where I have lived since I was born. Every place I've lived, a similar process for my backup caregiver, which was my mother. So, all her information. There are several different things, the background check things. There are several policies you have to sign, like the one about discipline, the one about medical needs, the one about the condition of your home, just a bunch of different stuff that you have to sign. So much paper. That's like my least favorite thing. So you have to be really, really organized and kind of say, okay, I have to get these papers done. Like, these are the papers that I can just read and sign, and these are the ones that require that I go someplace and have a fingerprint printing done, or go someplace and have this thing notarized, because they're different, definitely different types of forms and different steps that you have to take. So just a lot of different papers for days. That whole process of going through all of that takes quite a bit of time. You have to fill out like your income and your monthly bills, because you have to show that without having children in foster care in your home and without receiving financial pay or reimbursement for having children, that you are already able to pay all of your bills. Okay, so you have to give them a lot of personal information. Then there's also, the main thing is a home study. Now, in a home study, a social worker comes to your house and gets all up in your business. All up in your business. She gonna ask you, he or she, for me it was a she, so I'm like, she gonna ask you so many things that are going to make you uncomfortable. Like she's going to ask you about your love life, your sexual activity, your childhood trauma that you may have had, just all kinds of things that is going to make you like cringe, but they have to ask. Now, my time in DC, I probably should still mention too, I did this process in Maryland as well years ago. My process in Maryland wasn't exactly the same because I was getting a cousin out of foster care. So some of the things did not apply to me, but most of them did. So I did a home study twice. The first one in Maryland, which was much more invasive than DC. They kind of didn't ask all the same questions, but it's still very personal. And they look around your house. Another thing that you need to be mindful of is that they are very serious about every person in your household having a background check and a physical. So if you think you want to like have somebody living in your house and try to trick them, it's not going to work because you're going to have problems down the line. So you might as well just don't even try it because it will come back and bite you in the butt. But they do look at everything. Like if you have a person that has a toothbrush at your house, they don't have to live there. If they got a toothbrush there, that means they spend the night. They got to be background checked. I'm just letting you know. That's the way it is. So if you got a man or a woman or whomever that come and see you and sleep at your house, they live there and they need a background check because that's the way it is. So you're doing all of that stuff. Then you finish the class. Once you finish the class, you have to like wait because they're doing like, finishing up the paperwork on their end. It's a whole process. And then after some months, yes, some months, it's not quick. Expect this process. Again, it can be different where you are. It can be different depending on the agency and where they are at the moment and how fast or slow they are processing things at the moment. But expect this process to last 4 to 6 months. 4 to 6 months. Then you'll receive a license and your home will be open for providing care for children. Okay, so I'm going to end this video soon and record another video so that it's not too long. But there are 2 ways in DC. Remember, I can only really say DC. But there are 2 ways to go into this process in DC for adoption. So you can either foster children like randomly, like they need someone, okay, they'll call you and you have to, they'll bring kids to your house and that's it. And so then if you happen to have a child in your care that becomes eligible for adoption, you would have priority in adopting them because they already live with you. So that's one way to adopt in foster care. You can also identify a child or children that you are going through this process for, who you would like to adopt. So I identified the children at the beginning. So I knew about these 2 little girls because, I skipped this step. I'm sorry. Before you, let me think, when did that happen? Before the class. It might have been before. Yes, before the class, a social worker comes to your house just to do a quick look through, just to say, okay, I don't see nothing, no red flags are jumping out at me about this person. So they're good to go to start the process. So that is how I ended up knowing about these two little girls who were in foster care who became my daughters. Because when that lady came out to do the initial just walkthrough, she told me about them. And I'll do that in a separate video, talk about that experience, because it was really just amazing how it all unfolded. But that's a whole other topic. So that's how I knew about these two little girls. So I came into the process for them. Now, the downside of doing that is if you identify a child or children that you are coming into the process for, and for some reason that situation does not go through, you are no longer eligible to foster or adopt anyone else. I know it's absolutely ridiculous, but that is how it's done in DC. So if things would not have worked out, I would have had to do some of the process all over again to be eligible to try with another kid or to just be a regular foster parent. I would have had to start over. So that, I think I'm going to stop the video here. So that is the first part of the process to foster and adopt children from foster care. So in the second part, the part 2 video, I'll get more into the process of the visitation that occurred before I could officially move them to my house, and then how that whole process worked, and then when they actually moved in, and then the support that was available after the adoption was final. Man, this feels like 4 videos. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I want to cover all those things. So this is part 1, the end.